The second time round that happened, in this case, this previous time when I was in Bangkok, woke up to the sounds of noises, movement, sort of like the sound of heavy dragging feet along the floor. Um, it happened twice this time round as well. The second time, I heard a child's laughter
Oh
right near
wow.
my fucking yeah, right near my fucking bed, near my ear,
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't spook easily, but I had to keep the lights on for the rest of the evening both times.
Hello and welcome to the Spirit Box podcast, where we explore folklore, magic, the world of the spirits, and everything in between. And today I'm joined by professional occultist Mademoiselle Vendredi for a chat about her recent adventures in Thailand. I think this is like the fourth or fifth time she's joined us. And today we're going to get into Madame Vendredi's encounters with local ghosts, spirits, and the animist practices in Bangkok, where she was introduced to a whole world of supernatural entities, offerings, and hidden magical traditions. From her experiences with Thai Buddhist animism to the mysterious sound of spectral visitors in her room, she shares first-hand accounts of a city teeming with unseen forces. We also explore the unique duality of Thai spiritual life, where Buddhist shrines coexist with older spirit houses and offerings of red Fanta, yes, you heard it correctly, serve to appease ghosts. Mademoiselle V recounts her time in Bangkok's Portuguese quarter, where Catholic and Thai animist traditions have merged, and describes her visit to the legendary Amulet Market. Now, a heads up to listeners, we do get into some necromantic practices and esoteric rituals which involve human remains, and there's no doubt that some people will find this upsetting, so I would suggest, if that's something that you would find upsetting, to maybe give this episode a pass. And just to underline, this conversation is an exploration of historical and cultural practices. It is not an endorsement or advocacy in any way. I want to be really clear on that. Now, that said, the conversation turns to the darker side of Thai occultism, where necromantic practices involving effigies of the spirits of deceased infants, known as kumantong. Mademoiselle Vendredi shares insights into these controversial practices, as well as other esoteric rituals involving oils and charms said to be crafted from human remains. Now in the Plus show, we take a deeper look into the case of May Niam, a spirit whose shrine has become a focal point for those seeking supernatural intervention. Mademoiselle Vendredi shares the eerie story of how May Niam, once a young beauty queen, became a powerful spirit known for granting wishes. So much so that people flocked to her shrine to leave offerings of red Fanta and luxury items in exchange for her favour. She recounts her own experiences of receiving assistance from May Niam, and how she introduced one of her mentees to the spirit, leading to some uncanny results. We also discuss another prominent Thai spirit, May Niak, a benevolent entity associated with luck and prosperity. Often depicted as a plump woman in traditional attire, May Niak is revered by business owners who set up altars for her in their shops, hoping to attract success. So this episode is a fascinating journey into folk magic, animism, and the intricate interplay between the living and the spirit world. So tune in for an immersive and wide-ranging discussion on magic, spirits, and the unseen forces of Bangkok, Thailand. Now, if you want to hear the Plus show, the simplest thing to do is to go to the link 3 below and come and join the Patreon. You get the full extended Plus version of this show, and you get an extensive back catalogue of up to 5 years of bonus content. Pretty much all for the price of a cup of coffee. There's an entirely different podcast in there called Nameless, which is an hour a month of me and Tommy Kelly chatting through the various subjects that have piqued our interest during the month, from always from an occult and esoteric supernatural angle. And there's a vibrant Discord community of like-minded souls. Alternatively, you can always pick up a copy of my book, Song of the Dark Man, Father of Witches, Lord of the Crossroads, which is a great way to support me. That you can find the link below in my link 3 to do that, if that's preferable. Okay, let's get on with the show. Okay, so Mademoiselle Vendredi, you were very, very welcome back onto the Spirit Box. What number is this now? You're this 4, 5?
Oh, this must be, in my head, it's four, but I do actually think it's five. I think this is the
Yeah,
fifth time we've met
yeah,
up, but this is the first time with the face.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's lovely to have you back on the show again. I mean, we chat all the time, so it's it's it's
It
lovely for
doesn't,
everybody else to have you back on the show again.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then obviously it's lovely to be back. I mean, I was really hyping you up on my Instagram because, yeah, it's amazing. I don't know. Have you ever had any guests come on this many times? You
Oh,
probably have.
I think Phil Hine. I think Phil Hine, Joshua
Okay.
Cutchin, yeah, and you. I think it's the three of you. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's
I
great.
feel
It's good
honored.
company. It's good company.
I I feel honored that you put me in the same sentence as Phil Hine. I'm a big fan of his. But yeah, no, it's lovely to be back on. Thank you so much for inviting me. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose to get into it, you're just back from Thailand, and can you tell us a little bit
Yes,
about
it
what you?
was.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to over there?
Yes, of course. Oof, I don't know. Where do you want me to start, though? There's so much to tell you.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, why don't we start off with why I went to
Mhm.
Bangkok? That's probably the best way to start.
Yeah.
Um, So I was actually there last year for a couple of weeks. And I was mainly, actually, it's a two-tier reason, if I'm honest. The
Yeah.
first was just I needed to get away. I was desperate and itching to get on a plane again. And it was very hot. Well, it's actually beginning to get hotter where I am at the moment in the kingdom. And yeah, so I decided, you know what? Get on a plane, go to Bangkok, go and explore. That was the first reason. And then the second reason, which is more pertinent to the work that I do, one of my mentees, Harvey, who actually goes under the name South Texas Sage on Instagram, he lives out there, and so we ended up having a really nice, very short but really nice meetup. Obviously, we did a lot of mentorship, and then I thought, what was it? So it was a couple of months ago now, beginning of January, sort of after the whole New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, yay, it's another year gone. All of that hype had died down, and I was like, I think I'm going to go back to Bangkok again. So yeah, I did. I booked a ticket, uh, and yeah, and I thought I'll only stay for a month, and I ended up staying for I think about coming on 6 weeks. So I was there for
Okay.
quite a while.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. It's been many years since I've been to Bangkok, but I did spend about I did the kind of the whole Bangkok, Laos, Cambodia,
Mm,
the whole circuit and down into KL. I think in 2009, something like that.
okay.
Yeah, but I did Muay Thai. I trained Muay Thai for about 2 months.
Oh wow,
Yeah, yeah. Which
impressive.
yeah, which I basically was daily kicking off some Thai bloke, kicking the shit out of me twice a day for 2 months. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, I can tell you right now, hand on heart, Dara, I did not do any such thing while I was there. When I wasn't doing, well, I was doing a lot of magic stuff, which I will obviously come
Fabulous.
to.
Yeah.
But when I wasn't doing that, it was lots of coffee shops, lots of eating, lots of walking, lots of temples. Yeah, so it really was quite. Oh my goodness, Bangkok has such a vibe to it, doesn't it?
I mean, I've only overall I only spent about like 5 days in Bangkok, and I was in kind of Koh San Road, like kind of the backpacker
Yeah.
area. So I was kind of like very stereotypical, you know, Farang face down in a bucket. Like those people who don't know what a bucket is, like it's very strong alcohol with some Red
I,
Bull, you know. But anyway, we're not here to talk about my misadventures in Thailand.
I,
Um, you got up to some really interesting stuff that you were telling me about. We were chatting about on Insta, which is why we're here today. and some stuff I was never aware of kind of existed in Thailand. I know the whole amulet stuff. I mean, I have kind of Buddhist amulets from Thailand, but could you give kind of an overview of kind of how you got introduced to this? I guess describe it. It's kind of like an animism type magic and necromancy.
Yeah, well, I should obviously preface all of this by saying I didn't do any sort of formal training while I was there. I mean, I did meet a few people, and there were some very impromptu moments where I was directly taught by a little Thai shop owner who had a very, very curious shop. And in like between her Thai and my English and a smattering of some French for some reason, she managed to convey a very simple technique to me on how to dress candles the Thai way, with some of her money oil, which of course I had to buy at the end of our little mini session. But yeah, no, it was okay. So I didn't go to Bangkok thinking I'm going to learn Thai magic. Of course, I had by then read a little bit here and there online about Peter Jenks's books, and I was aware. And then obviously, like most things in the occult community, something becomes a fad for a while. Then you're sort of inundated with information about it on Instagram. But I never went to Bangkok thinking I'm going to learn some Thai occult magic. But things have a funny way of working out. So I guess the cool thing is that pretty much from the moment I stepped off the plane, both times, I have to say this, I was immediately, no, that's the wrong way around to say it. I encountered Thai ghosts and Thai land spirits from pretty much the second that I arrived, specifically where I was staying. So I was staying in this lovely hotel, a little bit run down, but it was a very nice hotel. Sort of one of those things you look up on booking.com and you think it looks amazing, but then you go to the rooms themselves. It's like, this is a bit shabby. It's more shabby than chic, you know. And you thought you were getting chic, but you just got shabby chic.
Yeah.
So right in the center, a little bit outside the center of the city. And so on both occasions, I got visited by something or other, it was the experiences themselves were pretty similar. Went to bed at normal time. Obviously, both times I was actually pretty jet lagged because the time change from the kingdom to it's a whole thing, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. I went to bed at the normal time, and then I woke up each time around about 2-3 in the morning. The second time round that happened, in this case, this previous time when I was in Bangkok, woke up to the sounds of noises, movement, sort of like the sound of heavy dragging feet along the floor. It happened twice this time round as well. The second time I heard a child's laughter near my fucking bed, near my ear.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't spook easily, but I had to keep the lights on for the rest of the evening, both times.
I've been there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of how I sort of obviously did my own exploring to make sure, you know, maybe there's some sort of spirit that I've accidentally sort of maybe triggered or trespassed on. So the beauty, as I'm sure anyone who's traveled in that part of the world will know, the beauty about Thai Buddhist animism is that you have the official Buddhism, which is the state religion, and then of course you have the animist practice, which looks Buddhist to the untrained eye. But upon further inspection, and when you do a little bit of digging, you read, and then maybe you ask a few hotel staff a little bit about it, you begin to realize there is a much more complex overlay of official state Buddhism and then the folk belief of spirits and ghosts. So after both occasions happened this time round, where I was visited by something or other, I went and made offerings at the hotel's little shrine. Not so little, actually. It was actually quite large. And Did you know that apparently Thai ghosts love red Fanta? Did you know that?
No, I had no idea.
It, it's pretty cool, and I found a couple of explanations online. Apparently, it became a thing about 10 odd years ago, where Thai people were beginning to leave bottles of red Fanta at local shrines, and the theory goes that the red color mimics the color of blood, so it's like
Right.
blood sacrifice kind of thing, the modern version,
Right.
which I think is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I started making offerings at the hotel shrine. So there's this belief, which again, I'm not a scholar, I'm not an expert. I just had to do a lot of research on my own. Whenever you encounter these types of shrines, especially if you're like in a big city like Bangkok, you see them everywhere. Every single plot of land where humans are living, so apartment buildings, shops, restaurants, you will see two shrines. You'll see a fairly big shrine, or bigger in comparison to the smaller one, which is more Buddhist, as it were. And it will look like your type of shrine that you might see anywhere in sort of a Buddhist context. Sometimes it will be the image of Buddha himself, although that was actually pretty rare. I did see it a couple of times, but not as much as you might think. I actually saw the Hindu god Vishnu. I think
Okay.
it's Vishnu.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, upon further digging, and don't quote me if it is actually Vishnu, I think it's Vishnu because I remember someone telling me. But so you've got Vishnu according to the Hindu mythology, but you've also got the Thai version of Vishnu, which isn't, he's not he's the Thai version. So
Okay.
he's not, like, the image itself is of Vishnu, but he's more of a representation of Buddhist philosophy, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So you get that larger one, and then right next to it, you'll see the pre-Buddhist shrine. So anybody who goes into this part of the world, I can't speak personally for Laos or Lao, Cambodia. I can't speak for those countries personally because I was never there, but I understand that is a thing as well there. These little tiny houses, you know what I mean? The smaller one, if you look inside, there's usually a statue of what looks like an old grandfather and an old grandmother. And apparently they represent the pre-Buddhist spirits of the land, so sort of like genus loci spirits, and they are also petitioned and prayed to alongside the more official Buddhist shrine. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's really cool. Very cool, actually. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been out to like Siem Reap in Cambodia, and like there's this, obviously it's a huge Hindu influence in all of that area, and it still comes out. You see, you probably saw this. Is the statues of, I think it's called King Makaluka. So it's like a 5-headed naga, and like it would come up like that over I think it's the sitting Buddha. Yeah. And
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes 7-headed. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I do remember. I saw an awful lot of statues, but yes, that one, I do remember that one. Particularly in the Amulet Market, actually, is where I encountered it most often. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so this idea that Thais, generally speaking, believe in the concept of land spirits, and more importantly, they believe that ghosts need to be appeased, i.e., given a space outside the home or the establishment or the business or whatever, so that they have a place to go so that they don't cause trouble for the humans who are living in that space. I mean, I've encountered that in other contexts as well. Is that a thing, broadly speaking, with the Fae? Is that a thing where you give them offerings to placate them?
Oh, you do give them offerings to placate them for sure. Like, and it tends to be stuff like, I mean, it's like things that were valuable to kind of the peasantry. Like, you know, it's like milk and butter would be, you know, like the kind of standard things. But I've seen those for the gin. in Delhi.
Yep.
And for us, shakutla, like
That's right.
you saw the dishes of milk and bread and that kind of thing. Like it's very similar. And a hecate with like eggs and honey and cake. Like
Right.
it's those accessible, things that are important to people, but kind of in their environment. What I found,
Yes.
but definitely stuff for the Fae. But weirdly, I think there's a similar thing to that, which is kind of a cutesy thing that I've seen in Ireland. I've seen it in England as well, right? But people buy fairy doors, and
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
little manufactured fairy doors, and they stick them down on a tree somewhere. I mean, I think that's a remnant of a similar thing.
Interesting. But is it to placate them, or is it just
No,
to?
it's not.
Is it
What I'm saying is that it's like, for me, it's like an echo of an old
okay?
habit. They also do these things. This is a very weird thing that happens in Ireland. Like, it's these kind of strange follies, like
Mm,
they're like chockines, right? Which means like little house. But they'll build like a miniature version of a cottage and put it out in front of the
oh,
house, and it's built in like the old fashioned crofts, that kind of stuff. And sometimes
right.
they'll have an old fashioned fireplace with all the kind of paraphernalia exposed to the road. Like, yeah, for some reason it's kind of like,
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it's like a tribute to that way of life.
Right.
Yeah, but you'd have them in the middle of
Right.
nowhere. Like, they're all over the place.
Mm.
Like it's
Well,
a weird thing to do, like to build a kind of a micro cottage in front of your house.
I love that
Mhm.
because that's basically actually you just given the Irish version of what I saw all over Bangkok, like little
Right.
mini traditional wooden mainly, but some of them were plastic. Most of
Okay.
them were like
Yeah.
these prefab things. And yeah, but the thing is, obviously, in this case, I guess the difference is that people are going to them every morning. We saw them everywhere. When Harvey and I were
Right.
walking around the city, you'd see these really simple ones. Sometimes I saw outside the more, like, for example, the street stalls and like shall we say, the less I don't know what to say. Like more of sort of like a not mum and pop, just really sort of proper Thai
Right.
places. If they didn't have a full blown altar or a little shrine sitting outside their establishment, they would literally put, and you could always tell. I became very aware of that. You would see the plate with a little bit of food and put in these little like these little ramekins, and it
Mm.
was set aside with a little bit of incense burning on the floor just as you entered the restaurant, for example. And yeah, there's this concept in the culture that um, you have to appease them. They have to be kept happy and fed and watered with red Fanta, apparently, in order to, yeah, so that they don't run amok.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of the Red Fanta thing, but very cool. Sorry, excuse me. So, tell me about the Catholic quarter.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That was a complete surprise to me. I mean, did you know that 500 years ago there was a Siam, yeah, because that was the ancient word for Thailand, a Siam Portuguese root? Did you know that?
No, I had no idea.
It blows the mind. And so, okay, so how did I discover it? Mainly, it was because it wasn't because of anything cool, like I was wandering in a neighborhood and suddenly I saw signs of Christianity everywhere. I did see that, but only after I was on Google. I think I was on YouTube actually, and I was just watching a couple of videos, and then this thing came up, and it was this YouTuber who was walking through the streets of the Portuguese Quarter, is what they call it. So the Portuguese Quarter is over the Chao Phraya River, which is the main river which flows through Bangkok, and in a nutshell, 600 years ago, there was some sort of war in the north of Siam. And I really hope that anybody who is much more up on the knowledge of ancient Siam will be able to correct me. But as far as I know, something was going up in the north,
Yeah,
and
Lana was the North Kingdom.
thank you. Yeah. About 500 Portuguese soldiers was sent over, and I'm still trying to figure out how that connection came about. Anyways, they won. They were granted permission to stay, and so they made their way down to the center of Thailand, to Bangkok, and they settled along the river. And I saw it. This YouTube, whatever the name was, and it just struck a chord with me. I was like, I have to go see this Thai Catholic melange. So I went. It was a hot morning. The taxi got absolutely lost, dropped me off in one part of the quarter, and then I was just, because it's like a little rabbit hole. It's like a little rabbit warren when you go there. So yeah, it was a vibe, if I may use that expression. It was Portuguese / Spanish Catholicism meets Thai animism. I mean, my first clue that I knew that I'd stepped into the neighborhood, as it were, was when I saw one of those little Thai spirit houses. And I looked at it, I was like, something a little bit funny about this one, because it didn't look quite like the ones I see everywhere else. And there, smiling back at me, I kid you not, Dara, was the face of little fat baby Jesus. It was a fat one as well. And there was Mary as well. And then there were the representations of the Thai land spirits all chilling together in that little tiny house of theirs. And I thought, if that's not syncretism, then I didn't know what is. But yeah, it was this little cozy neighborhood. And honestly, because obviously, I'm based part of the year in Southern Europe. So it was very much giving, if anyone's been to southern Spain or Portugal, they know exactly what I mean when I'm talking about the tiles, the style of the rooftops, the slating on the windows. It was just giving Lisbon. And then I stumbled across the big main church, the first Catholic church built in the country of Thailand, and it was stunning. It was called Santa Cruz, of course, and what's even cooler was the whole neighborhood felt like like a Catholic jungle fever dream, because everywhere I was looking, I kept turning and I would see images of images of Mary and Jesus and a couple of the saints, and then right next to them, like I'm talking about on the door, on the doors, and then right next to them there'd be images of Ganesha, who's also very much revered in Thailand, especially in Bangkok, and also images of and then the little spirit houses. And according to the little museum that I visited, all the people who settled in that area, they are all descendants of the original. I mean, a lot of them did, of course, intermarry. They were originally soldiers, and they mixed with the mercantile class, the sailors, and then came other trades as well. And they all sort of intermingled with the Thai society at the time. A lot of them became prominent. Actually, there are a few Thai families that control. They have big stakes in some of the industries in Thailand, shipping oil, gas, and some of them are proudly descended from the Portuguese that first came about 500 years ago. So cool, the area, so cool.
Yeah, sounds awesome. And was that near, or was it a different place? We're at the Amulet Market.
Oh, so the Amulet Market is right across the river, and a little bit, if I remember correctly. I mean, it's basically they're both on one side of the river. So the Portuguese quarter is on the other side, and that's sort of going outside the city. And the Amulet Market is right near the Grand Palace, and it sort of hugs the riverfront, And yeah, that is actually a very cool place as well to go to. I described it to my Ferris Club members. I did an audio when I was sitting chilling there one morning, and it's like if the Harry Potter universe had a Thai school of witchcraft and magic and their own Diagon Alley, that's how it was. Yeah, it was again little tiny little warren, so like a rabbit warren of little tiny streets, very narrow in some places, and absolutely full to brim with all sorts of occult paraphernalia. Um, and that's quite an interesting place to go to if you're in the mood to pick up some Thai amulets, uh, to see a couple of other rather more sinister looking things, but very, very, very cool place to go to.
Now, being a magnetically drawn to the sinister person, pray tell what are these sinister things you saw?
Well, now obviously, what I'm about to tell you, all of these things which I did see were only effigies, so they weren't the real thing. But in order to explain what they are, I need to give you a little bit of information that I've garnered through reading and through just doing a whole ton of research to understand it from a Thai occult point of view. So we referenced earlier about the whole belief of ghosts, and the idea that, just because you crossed over doesn't mean you're not useful anymore to a magician, at least. So, kind of like your Western necromancy sort of concept. So this is obviously touching upon the much, and I say in air quotes, darker side of Thai occultism, but there are stories of. So there's one called the Kumantong, which is the golden child, and it's basically, according to the myth and folklore, it is the spirit of a baby that has been removed from its mother during cesarean. But the best, again, I have to say, obviously I was getting this information from a lot of different sources, not least Peter Jenks's very good book, Thai Occult. And basically, according to the sources, in some cases, the woman has to be still alive when the child is procured, or the baby, rather, I should say. And then in other cases, because they have a thing here in Thailand about the concept of ghosts that have died violent deaths.
Right.
Again, this kind of ties into the idea of karma. It ties into the idea that ghosts that haven't lived a full life have energy to still be, that you can tap into because their life was ended. So whether, for example, it's a baby or a child rather that's died in the process of being born, that's something that can be tapped into. There's also this concept that if someone, say for example, has been executed, I visited a shrine inside a much bigger temple complex that is dedicated to the last man that was executed legally in Thailand by the royal family at the time. And because of the way he was executed, it's the Thai belief is that his life was cut short. Therefore, if you pray to him and ask him for things, he will still be able to affect the present. It's the idea that he still had so much life to give. Since he doesn't live anymore, you can ask him to give it to you. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
So the Kumantong is the idea of a child spirit. Now, when I was in the Amulet Market, I saw plenty of effigies that looked like fetuses, but they weren't the real thing because in Thailand that is illegal. But there is an underground trade. More so now, I believe, because Thailand has opened up in terms of sexual health and abortions, and therefore they are more easily procurable. And I know that sounds very dark, especially if you are only working from a modern Western occult point of view. But it's deeply ingrained in the practices there. So the idea that the spirit of a fetus can go to work for you because you basically treat them through a series of rituals. You basically tell them, I'm your parent now. Yes, you're dead, but here's how you can continue to exert your influence on the world in the life that you should have had. So yeah, I mean, I saw quite a few effigies that looked suspect. Very cool, obviously, but at the same time, it was like, you know.
And is that seen like as like a morally okay, or what's the kind of sense of it? Is that a deeply forbidden thing, or how is it perceived?
I mean, from what I understand, if the person is deeply Buddhist, perhaps then there's a reservation on procuring such a thing. So there's the Kumantong, which is the golden child, but then there's also the Lukrok. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Lukrok looks and sounds like the same as a Kumantong, but they are considered to be much more powerful. I can't actually remember why in this instant, but it has a lot to do with how they were procured.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying for legal reasons on your show, I'm not saying that people should go out and procure fetuses, but that is basically what it is. If you're buying the real thing and you're working with the real spirit, then it cannot be a plastic effigy. It must be the real thing. And so I think there was this story about 9 years ago, which I remember reading in the news. And I didn't think much of it at the time because most people who are not involved in this world would. But apparently this Singaporean British man was caught in his hotel roasting 9 procured fetuses
Jesus Christ.
to sell them on the black occult market in Singapore. Now, if you're thinking that's crazy, it is crazy, but people are willing to pay a lot of money for that because the belief is so strong that these little fetus spirits have the power to basically do anything you want because they have a whole life that they haven't lived yet. And so they have nowhere to put that energy, so it might as well be for your ends.
Oh man, that's dark. I mean, I excuse me. I understand that, like, there's a lot of necromancy that is intense, and I think it's, I suppose, a very important distinction that these children have been deceased when they are procured. They are not murdered and something horrendous. No. This is a very important distinction.
Yes, absolutely.
But I mean, in nearly every country, there's some variation of quite, grotesque necromancy. I mean, if I remember correctly, there's something around a man being executed by hanging that will cause a kind of a final ejaculation, and from that ejaculation is believed that like a mandrake will grow. From memory, that's it. But like, there's always things like that. I mean, you've got like the hand of glory that's been procured from the corpse of again, a hanged thief or a hanged murderer. I can't remember which.
I think it's just literally anybody that's been. No, I think it is a hanged murderer. Yeah, you take the hand of a hanged murderer.
Yeah, so these things are have always existed. Excuse me. I mean, there was one famous case of black revenge magic in the county where I'm from in the 1800s, where what was the rationale? I can't remember what the rationale was, but it was something to do with some sort of love affair gone wrong. as these things sometimes are.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, but a corpse was unearthed, and a strip of skin, a perfect hoop of skin from the body all the way down to the foot was cut down the front of the back, a strip, to make what's called a spancel. Like a spancel was like used to tie up animals, that kind of thing. It's like a loop. And that spancel was worn around the waist of the not necessarily the magician, but the person who had hired the magician to act out this.
Right.
But it was a big play made about it, like the Spancel of Death, it's called. But it was based on a real case. You know, these things went on everywhere. Anyway, I interrupted you, but I know it's going to be it's going to be a tricky one for people to get their head around.
It is. I mean, of course, you know, I should say that even though ghost law, just from the 6 weeks I was there, even though ghost law is prevalent and there is a fear in the Thai psyche of ghost revenge, and obviously with that comes the belief of magicians and people who work magic. The concept of Kumantong and Lukrok isn't mainstream. It's not like every magician is doing it. It's more like that's why I said there's a basically it's an underground trade.
Gotcha.
Not least because it is illegal to procure bodily remains in Thailand. They have some other stuff as well. They have something called naman prai, which is basically oil made from various parts of the deceased person, various combinations. From what I understand, it obviously all has to be done extremely ritualistically. The elements have to be gathered, and then it's all made into some sort of oil, or in a lot of cases, it's made into something called sipung, which is, if I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, sipung, and that basically means balm. So it's made into like a solid form, into a balm. It's all mixed together, and then that can be used to put on people or put on objects. Interestingly enough, the only reference I can find to proper naman prai, so that's bodily remains oil or balm in this case, is actually used in love magic to compel somebody to love you. That's interesting because I'm pretty sure I've read somewhere in some medieval or at least a book on medieval superstitions that if you sprinkle the dust of a corpse over someone who's sleeping, it will keep them. It's like the hand of glory. It will keep them asleep until you brush it off them again. So this idea that, you know, you can use the power of what the corpse, somehow it sort of retains it even after the spirit is no longer there.
Right. Interesting. Of course, the Victorians used to do that, and they used to make medicine out of mummies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but no, I definitely wouldn't try it myself. But yeah, I mean, this idea of, like I said, Kumantong and Lukrok, they're not mainstream. You have to really, and I mean, Harvey, my mentee, came with me on a few occasions, and obviously I never did encounter a real Lukrok fetus amulet. But if you go to the Amulet Market, you will see a lot of replicas, or rather, they are effigies of a fetus, but they're not a real fetus itself.
Awesome. So, for people who want to find out more about you, your work, where's the best place for them to find you?
Instagram. That's the only place I am. Mademoiselle Vendredi. I'm the only one on Instagram with that name, I think. And obviously my profile, I think it pops up at the very top. You can't miss it. I literally say I'm a professional occultist. People can DM me. I do have the Instagram profile, as of this moment, closed. I tend to make it a habit whenever I come back to this part of the world. I keep it closed just in case.
Fair enough.
But whenever I'm traveling, that's actually a sign. If my profile is open and you're able to just add yourself to my profile without needing a confirmation from me, you know I'm traveling outside of the kingdom.
Yeah.
But yeah, they can come and find me on Mademoiselle Vendredi, and then I have the link to my Ferris Club in the bio. Obviously, of course, I'm still working with clients. I do still take on clients. Mainly these days, I restrict myself to execration, cursing, love work, and money. That's basically my wheelhouse. And of course, people are always very free to browse through my testimonials, as it were, reviews of my work. And yeah, and I'm very good at what I do.
Lovely stuff. Well, look, it's been a pleasure to have you back on, and I hope people will will follow up and check out what you do at Ferris Club. I've been a member for a couple of years since it started, I think, and
Yep.
I always enjoy your stuff. It's really interesting. As I said, very practical. I can apply something immediately, which I think is awesome. So, thank you very much for coming to Spirit Books.
Thank you so much, Darren.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mademoiselle Vendredi. If you want to find out more about her and her work, then do check the show notes below, and you can find a little bit more about her and indeed get some mentorship if that is something you wish for. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I'm